Tax season, alas, is also high season for crooks who want to steal your identity and get their hands on your refund. Tax refund identity theft is one of America's fastest growing crimes, and the criminals keep getting smarter. Scott Cohn is here with the story. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Tyler. It's growing so fast because, face it, it's a lot easier and safer for a crook than it is to rob a bank. In theory, all it takes is a name and a social security number to file a tax return. So if your name and social security number get into the hands of one of these criminals, look out.
In San Diego, an international crime ring allegedly used 2,000 stolen identities to claim $20 million in bogus refunds.
I would say that this is one of the most sophisticated operations we've ever seen.
So sophisticated, foot soldiers in the scheme rented apartments across Southern California just to collect the loot. In Alabama, federal agents busted a U.S. postal carrier, later convicted for his role in another scheme. Evidence including cash and checks was right there in his delivery van.
This is the world that we live in.
An identity theft minefield, according to the Identity Theft Resource Center. The IRS paid $3.6 billion in potentially bogus tax refunds in 2012, according to government estimates. More than 1.5 million taxpayers were victims. That's actually an improvement as the IRS adopts new measures to detect fraud. The Justice Department's tax division has made identity theft one of its top priorities, focusing on paid preparers who handle nearly half of all individual returns. That means they have access to half of all taxpayer identities. In the past year, authorities have shut down more than 60 firms that were trafficking in stolen information. But as the government gets smarter, so do the crooks.
We are so far behind the thieves, we never know how they're going to monetize our personal information.
Or how they'll cover their tracks, like the thieves in Alabama who teamed up with a cable TV installer, stealing people's identities and their internet access to make it look like the legitimate taxpayer filed the return.
We always encourage people to guard their personal information like they would any other valuable.
That means don't let your social security number get into the hands of anyone you don't trust. Easier said than done, though, when thieves are stealing identities from financial institutions, hospitals, even the IRS itself.
Now, the instances of IRS employees getting involved in this are thankfully very rare, but it points to the issue and the fine lines there are in trying to rein in this kind of fraud. For example, the Justice Department, as you heard, has been trying to rein in these paid preparers, and the IRS wanted to regulate them, but a federal appeals court has just struck that down. There's also the balance between trying to get your information and your refund quickly versus keeping your information private, and that's the balance that the IRS is trying to strike.
Is the typical scheme as simple and nefarious as a crook perpetrator gets your name, your address, your social security number, and files a return, and then what? Do they have the return? The refund sent to them?
They have the refund sent to them. They have it put on a prepaid debit card, makes it even harder to trace, and there are even more nefarious types of schemes where, as you heard, they're actually stealing people's internet access. And it's not, you don't need an address. They need the name and the social security number, and theoretically, unless the IRS catches it, they collect a refund. Then you go to collect your refund, but
they say we've already paid your refund.
Exactly.
And then untangling that must be a real troubling situation.
On average, it's still taking about a year for the IRS to untangle it for the taxpayer. It's a nightmare, particularly for people who are counting on this money.
Oh, my goodness, a whole year to do that. But, okay, so in the case where it is a tax preparer who is crooked here, are they then doing the same thing? In other words, they'll fill out a tax return in your name and have that money deposited to a card, as you say, or the check sent to their address?
There are all kinds of variations of that, but yeah, they have access to all of that information, so they can have checks sent, they can skim from refunds. There have been instances like that, and it is a very big problem.
This seems like something that you wouldn't know was happening. I was going to ask you, are there any telltales here? And I can only imagine that there aren't many, and that you find out about it after you've been victimized.
That's right, but if you are the victim of identity theft, a lot of people don't think to call the IRS. Doesn't matter what time of year. Report it to the IRS. They will give you a special PIN code so that when you file your taxes, there's a little extra measure of protection.
Scott Cohn, thank you very much. That's shocking stuff.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Scott.